Hi, this is Ryan from blazingwonders.com, and I am starting first major project for a while. This is going to be the propane locker, and what I've worked on today is cutting out the wood panels, dimensioned for both the LPG tank as well as for how this can fit into the back of the van in the garage. So that required a few compromises. One, I'm not going to be able to do a top-down design, which is what is the preferred standard, particularly marine standard, for how to store propane in a propane locker. I am going to have a front board that forms a lip. It's going to be sealed then with the top door that'll be a part of that. The assembly will be sealed, and show how we're going to put that together. A bit of a design compromise. So if you're following this, it's much better to do the top-down design if you can. That's what's best practice in terms of standard for storing LPG. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be quite able to do that in this design, but we're going to do the best job that we can, and we'll take you through how we're going to do this. Got a Craig pocket drill jig for doing these pocket screws. I'm going to be using, this is a waterproof wood glue, a little bit more expensive than the non-waterproof, but given that there's going to be a lot of moisture in the van, hopefully that will be fine. We'll be filling in on the back side of the pocket screws with this plastic wood. Have some clamps, as well as this is 1/2 inch plywood, so I'm going to be using 1 inch pocket hole screws for soft plywood. All right, so we have the propane locker glued and screwed up, hopefully in a good way, not in a bad way. Where I was a little bit surprised with these truss head screws here is I had thought about laminating, that's just as a test case. This is not going to be seen. It's hidden in the van, back in the garage and inside of a cabinet. And yeah, okay. So even with putting these in, there's a little bit of a lip here. So painting, probably okay, but laminating with a flat sheet over these, that's just not going to work. I did a test case with the panhead screws, and these are better. I think you could probably laminate with these. So I may still try to do something here with removing some screws once this all sets up, and especially in the front, and trying this. I did use blue tape. This glue wipes up really easily. It's probably not necessary, but when you squeeze it all, or when you put it all together, it does squeeze out. I didn't use a tremendous amount of glue, but even with what I used, it did squeeze out. The tape made it easy, and then I just came back with a hot, damp cloth to wipe up the excess. And I'm using some clamps here to add some additional pressure while the glue is setting up. Quickly we'll show how we drilled the pocket holes for the propane locker. Also, 7.0 Savage has a really nice tutorial on how to do this for making your own cabinet drawers. So what I use for drilling these pocket holes that you see here is this Craig 5200 pocket hole jig. Comes with the jig, and I'll show you how to use it here in a second. Instructions, it comes with a drill, and you can accommodate, let's see if it focuses there. Okay, there we go. 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, all the way up to 1.5 inch. It comes with a starter screw set, at least mine did, different thicknesses, different screw lengths for different thicknesses of material. Also comes with a gauge, and this is what you can also use to set the collar on the drill bit to the right depth. All right, so the way this works is you can drill 1, 2, I guess you could even drill 3, but it's really set up for either narrow boards where you could use the 2 closest together, or for a wider board, the 3. And it's pretty simple. First of all, you can release, you can set the depth, and then you can tighten it here. And then there's a really handy clamp here that when you get the thickness of board that you want, and you want to go and drill a bunch of boards of the same thickness, rather than opening this all the way, it opens up just a bit. So it makes things really fast when you get going. So you see I don't have to really tighten this all that far to get where I want to go. But here I kind of set the distance based upon the edge. And for something this wide, I'm going to use these two. First, you tighten it down. I've got a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch board here because that's the height of this. Okay, so make it sure it's nice and tight. So you want to start. Collar stops. You loosen up. And there you go. And you could do as many as you need depending upon what you're trying to do for the project. So we're in the final stages of our propane locker build out. I've laminated the outside of the board. I've painted the inside. I've put a 2-inch facing board here. This will all be caulked in the inside, and I've also put a 1/2 inch sealing surface all around. So I'll be using this rubber foam that is a weather seal. It compresses down to a 1/16 of an inch. I'll have 2 hinges. These are piano hinges. And so the door will open this way on those piano hinges. These clamps will hold the door. This is the door, will hold the door shut. So I'm in the process of putting on the hinges. I have these piano hinges taped down, and they're self-aligning. So if you hang it over the edge, then the hinge will be centered correctly. Yeah, so here's a spare hinge, that's what it looks like, so that when it opens up, then it's opening correctly. I've taken a hole punch to the center of each of these, and I'll use a very small drill bit using number 6 screws, so they're small, and don't want to drill the hole too big, but also want to have a hole so that I don't break the screw trying to put it through the board or cause any splitting to happen in the wood. Locker. I bought these latches off of eBay. They're stainless steel, so they shouldn't rust, and they were listed as 90 degrees. Now I needed a low profile hinge and something that would fit. I've got about 3-4 inches of head space. These are 2.5 inches tall. And what I found though is they were listed at 90 degrees, but they simply do not work at 90 degrees. So I have this latched, but there's no way to get this off. And you can see why in terms of the interference at the top. So rather than return these and buy new latches and waiting for a few days, I decided to modify this latch. So now, I'll change hands here. Now, you could put this latch here, but then you're pulling against the individual layers on the plywood, and you're drilling through the edge, which I really just don't like. I'd rather pull on the face to really get a good compression for the propane locker against the seal that I'm going to put in place. So, handy Dremel with a cutting disc, making sure to use the right eyewear. So after about a minute of Dremel work, and this is still really hot, I now have a latch that works in 90 degrees. And I'll file off these edges so they're not sharp. All right, so the propane locker is finished at this point. The regulator and the low pressure hose is connected. through a bulk fitting 3/8 inch flare and sealed. Now solenoid valve, I still have to cut a hole for the power on the side. I have a 2-inch front here that's sealed and everything is caulked and painted on the inside. And if there's any propane that leaks, hopefully that pulls here in the bottom. I did test this out with the weather seal that I've got around, and I used the cylinder to put in some propane, closed it up for a couple of hours. It didn't smell any propane leaking around the seams, but did smell propane when I opened up the locker again. Again, this is not ABYC approved since it's not coming from the top down, but I'm confident that for our purposes that this is going to work. In terms of the mounting of the bracket and the regulator, 1 1/4 inch stainless steel bolts. I used some caulking material on these neoprene washers to create a seal. One last video on the propane locker. It is installed. I did get in the 40-inch propane hose. This is for attaching to the propane cylinder. It's long enough that I can attach it out here and also access it while it's inside. You can see the connections on the hoses, the regulator, the solenoid wiring, the bracket. This is to attach the propane cylinder so it doesn't move. The box is bolted through the floor back in the corner. And then I do have a vent coming out of the bottom here. Again, propane is heavier than air. As I've mentioned several times through this, it's not top loading. I do have a 2-inch lip. The other advantage of the 2-inch lip is that it does not interfere with the 80/20, whereas if it was all the way to the bottom, it would. Once the cylinder's in, up, and then sealed.